The family group chat lit up with a message never meant for my eyes. The inheritance split starts as soon as the mummy signs. I read it 3 times before my hands began to shake. My daughter-in-law Valentina had posted it in the family chat by mistake, then deleted it seconds later. Too late. The mummy. Not Genevieve. Not Mom. Not Mrs. Kensington. Just the mummy. As if I were already gone. As if I were some dried-out obstacle standing between them and my money. I sank into my armchair, my knees suddenly weak. My phone slid into my lap while a cold pressure spread through my chest. For a moment I couldn't breathe. Then came the follow-up message. Oops. Wrong chat. Ignore that. Ignore it. Some things can't be unseen. My son Dominic called immediately. I let it ring. Valentina sent 3 texts in a row. I ignored those 2. What explanation could possibly clean this up? Outside my window, autumn leaves spun across the lawn in bright red and gold. The sky was clear, the kind of day people call beautiful. Yesterday I would have agreed. Yesterday, I was a 67-year-old widow who believed her family loved her. I went to the kitchen and made tea with unsteady hands, spilling hot water across the counter. While it steeped, memories rose like ghosts. Dominic graduating college. Me cheering alone because Sebastian had died the year before. The down payment I gave them when Valentina was pregnant with Isla. The lake house I bought so the family could spend summers together. The college funds for both grandchildren. All those years I thought I was building a legacy. Turns out I was financing expectations. The doorbell rang. Through the peephole I saw Dominic standing stiffly on the porch. Valentina hovered behind him, already wearing her apology face. I opened the door. Mom, Dominic began, voice tight. Valentina made a mistake. That message wasn't what? I asked calmly. Meant for me to see? He stopped. Valentina stepped forward, eyes glossy on command. Genevieve, please. You don't understand. It was a joke. I was texting my sister about a movie we watched. Stop. I raised one hand. I'm not interested in explanations. Dominic's face reddened. Mom, you're overreacting. She apologized. It was stupid. Just a joke, I said. The room went quiet. I looked at my son and wondered when exactly he had become a man who defended cruelty before dignity. I'd like to be alone now. Mom, I need time. They left looking offended. Offended. I sat in the dark living room after they drove away, untouched tea beside me. Then I began remembering everything I had ignored. How often Valentina asked about my investments. How Dominic kept suggesting we organize my estate. How both of them became strangely alert whenever I mentioned my financial advisor. How long had they been discussing the mummy and her money? My phone kept buzzing. I turned it off. That night, I lay awake watching shadows move across the ceiling. The hurt was still sharp, but underneath it something steadier had begun to form. Resolve. If they saw me as an obstacle, perhaps it was time they learned who Genevieve Kensington really was. The next morning I called my lawyer. A week passed. 7 days of missed calls, flowers from Valentina, voicemails from Dominic shifting between concern and annoyance. Even my grandchildren texted more than usual, each message suspiciously polished. I said nothing. Sunday dinner arrived, and I accepted the invitation. I wanted to see them clearly. I arrived at 6 sharp with my usual apple pie. Valentina opened the door wearing a smile so wide it looked painful. Genevieve, we weren't sure you'd come. I'm sure. She hugged me too tightly and ushered me inside. The house looked perfect as always. Every surface polished. Every cushion arranged. Family photos lined the hallway like a museum of curated happiness. I noticed how many memories I had paid for. Disney. Aspen. Alaska. Dominic came from his office with the cautious expression of a man entering negotiations. Glad you made it, Mom. Then came the grandchildren. Isla 16. Theo 14. Their faces brightened the moment they noticed the gift bags in my hands. Grandma. Isla hugged me first. I got an A in history. I made the basketball team, Theo added quickly. Achievements offered before affection. Someone had trained them well. Dinner was roast chicken, salad, and performance. I stayed pleasant and mostly quiet. Valentina, however, guided the conversation exactly where she wanted it. The Hendersons installed a pool, she said with a sigh while serving salad. I told Dominic maybe we should do one next summer. Pools are expensive, Dominic muttered, glancing at me. Valentina laughed lightly. Sometimes you have to enjoy life. It's short. Her eyes flicked toward me. Short indeed. Dominic cleared his throat. Mom, I was thinking maybe we should review your finances soon. Just make sure everything's in order. I took a sip of water. Why? No reason, he said quickly. Just estate planning. Valentina jumped in. At your age, it's important to have things organized. I set down my glass. At my age. She blinked. I'm 67, Valentina. Not 97. Silence dropped over the table. Even Dominic looked embarrassed. Then Theo, bless that child, quietly asked, Is there pie? After pie, Valentina swept a stack of glossy brochures onto the table. I wanted everyone's opinion, she said brightly. For our next family vacation. Caribbean cruises. 5-star resorts. Private island excursions. Luxury on every page. I flipped through one brochure and looked up. And who exactly is paying for this? Valentina laughed as if I delivered a charming little joke. Dominic smiled weakly into his coffee. No one answered. Later, while collecting my coat, I paused near the hallway when voices drifted from the kitchen. She seems normal, Valentina whispered. Do you think she's still upset about that stupid text? Dominic asked. I don't know. A cabinet door closed. But we need to be careful, he added. If she changes her will. She won't, Valentina cut in. Your mother adores those kids. Just keep them front and center. I stepped back before they saw me. So that was the plan. Use the grandchildren as bait. I walked to my car with a smile so calm it would have frightened them if they'd seen it. Inside the driver's seat, I sat for several minutes without turning the key. The night had confirmed everything. The loving family I believed in was a performance. A polished set with matching smiles and hidden calculations. They weren't waiting for me to live well. They were waiting for me to die conveniently. When I got home, I went straight to my office and opened the files I'd been reviewing all week. Mortgage payments after Dominic lost his job. The loan for Valentina's boutique that collapsed in 6 months. Private school tuition. Summer camps. Emergency bridges. Car repairs. College savings. Line after line of generosity I had mistaken for family support. Now I saw it differently. I had funded entitlement. My phone rang. Dominic. This time I answered. Mom. Just making sure you got home okay. I'm fine. Good. He hesitated. Next weekend Valentina thought we could come by. And look at that old china cabinet you mentioned donating. My antique Chippendale cabinet was worth at least $15,000. Take it off your hands, he added. How thoughtful. I'll think about it, I said. After I hung up, I sat in the dim office light feeling strangely steady. Then I opened my laptop. How to change your will. The next morning I called Celeste Hawthorne, an attorney I'd met years earlier at a charity fundraiser. Not my regular lawyer. Dominic knew him. I needed fresh eyes and sealed lips. I'd like to make changes to my estate, I told her receptionist. Significant ones. Celeste took the call herself within the hour. I can help with that, Mrs. Kensington. When would you like to come in? For the first time since that message in the group chat, I smiled. They thought I was a helpless old woman. The mummy. A treasure chest waiting to be opened. They had no idea how badly they'd misjudged me. Celeste's office surprised me. No dark wood. No pompous leather chairs. No dusty old prestige. It was bright, modern, efficient. Large windows overlooked the city park. Celeste matched the room perfectly, sharp, direct, impossible to fool. After hearing the story, she folded her hands. So your family is essentially waiting for you to pass away, and you'd like to revise your plans. I appreciated the honesty. Yes. And what exactly do you want? I had spent days thinking about that. Revenge? Punishment? Humiliation? Finally I said, control. She nodded once. They see me as a bank account with an expiration date. I'd like them to learn otherwise. Legally, she said, making notes, you may distribute your assets however you wish. Your current will leaves everything to your son, with the assumption he'd look after the children. I paused. Now I suspect it would mostly fund Valentina's shopping tastes and vacation fantasies. And the grandchildren? That question slowed me down. Isla and Theo were still young enough to be shaped. Too young, perhaps, to understand the game being played around them. They've been taught that grandma exists to provide, I said quietly. But I'm not sure they're lost. For the next hour, we built something entirely new. Celeste asked about values, goals, charities, long-term care, education, accountability. Questions no one in my family had ever bothered to ask. Then as we finished, she leaned back. One more thing, Mrs. Kensington. Yes. What do you want to do with the rest of your life? I blinked. No one had asked me that in years. Since Sebastian died 8 years ago, I had become useful instead of alive. Mother. Grandmother. Hostess. Emergency fund. Reliable helper. But me? I didn't know. It's been a long time since I thought about that, I admitted. Celeste's expression softened. Your assets can secure your future, she said. They can't give it meaning. Her words followed me all the way home, so I took a detour. I drove to the community center where I used to volunteer before Sebastian became ill. The building had been renovated, but the warmth inside felt the same. At the front desk, a woman about my age smiled up at me. Can I help you? I used to volunteer here, I said. Years ago. We're always looking for good people. What did you do? Photography. Even saying the word sent a spark through me. I taught beginner classes. Her face lit instantly. You're kidding. Our instructor just moved to Arizona. Before I knew it, I was filling out forms, discussing schedules, laughing. Her name was Serafina, and before I left she added, we also have a Tuesday social group. Coffee, conversation, occasional day trips. I'd like that, I heard myself say. Outside, the air felt lighter. For the first time in days, I was looking forward to something. When I got home, I opened the closet Sebastian and I once called the studio. My old camera bag sat untouched beneath a shelf of forgotten frames. I lifted my favorite Nikon, brushed away the dust and held it in both hands. Still fit me perfectly. How long had it been since I'd held a camera and felt like myself? My phone buzzed across the kitchen counter. Dominic, Mom, need to talk about Theo's summer camp. Thinking Vail this year. Expensive but worth it. Call me. Vail. Worth it. Of course they were already planning how to spend more of my money. I set the phone face down and returned to my camera. A larger plan was beginning to take shape now. Not just the will. My life. They thought I was sitting quietly in my house, waiting to pass on schedule and hand over the keys to the vault. They had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I went to the bank and opened a new private account Dominic knew nothing about. I transferred a substantial amount into it. Enough to notice. Enough to test a suspicion. Sure enough, he called that afternoon. Mom, just checking in. Did you make a large withdrawal today? Yes, I said pleasantly. I've decided to do some traveling. Traveling? His voice sharpened. Where? With who? I haven't decided. A pause. Don't you think you should discuss major expenses with me first? The nerve of it nearly made me laugh. Dominic, it's my money. I don't need approval to spend it. Of course not, he said quickly. I'm just concerned about your safety. And your future security. My future security. As if he cared about anything except preserving his future inheritance. Don't worry, I said sweetly. There should still be plenty left when I'm gone. I let the next part hang for a beat. Though that may be much later than you expected. Silence. Rich, delicious silence. After hanging up, I called Serafina. That Tuesday group you mentioned, I said. Too late to join this week? Not at all, she said warmly. Good. It was time to build a life that had nothing to do with being the mummy and everything to do with being Genevieve Kensington. 3 months passed in a rush. I barely recognized myself. The photography classes at the community center became the brightest part of every week. Teaching again woke something in me that had been asleep for years. My students ranged from nervous teenagers to retirees older than I was, all curious, all eager. Their energy fed mine. Serafina and the Tuesday social group became my sanctuary. Unlike my family, these people wanted nothing from me except conversation. We talked about books, travel dreams, politics, bad knees, old romances, good wine. No one once asked about my assets. Some Tuesdays we visited art galleries. Other weeks botanical gardens, local markets, even a vineyard tour. I brought my Nikon everywhere and started building albums filled with memories no one could claim but me. At home, I began reclaiming rooms that had stood frozen since Sebastian died. I painted the living room a deep, vibrant blue. Valentina once called too bold for someone your age. I turned Sebastian's old den into a proper photography studio. I emptied closets full of things I'd kept only because the family might want them someday. Your house should reflect who you are now, Serafina told me when I hesitated over replacing the old dining room set. Not who you used to be. Then she smiled. Besides, it's just furniture. My family did not share that wisdom. You're getting rid of the dining table? Dominic sounded genuinely distressed when I mentioned it. But Mom, that's an heirloom. It should stay in the family. It's just a table, Dominic. I paused. And it's my table. The more alive I became, the more uneasy they grew. Not for me. For themselves. Valentina began dropping by without warning, always pretending concern. Genevieve, we hardly see you anymore. She sighed one afternoon while scanning my redesigned living room with visible horror. The children miss you. They have phones, I said. They know how to use them. They're busy with school. I'm sure. She clasped her hands dramatically. Dominic and I worry about you spending so much on renovations. Her eyes moved around the room again. At your age, shouldn't you be thinking about downsizing? Simplifying. That phrase again. At your age. Actually, I said, I'm thinking about Italy. She blinked. My friend Serafina and I are planning a trip next spring. Italy. Her voice jumped an octave. That's expensive. And far. Probably unwise, I agreed cheerfully. Which is why it sounds fun. She left 10 minutes later. I called Celeste the moment the door closed. Let's finalize everything, I said. It was time. A week later, Dominic called in barely controlled panic. Mom, I tried logging into your investment account to check those tech stocks. The password's been changed. Yes, I said. I changed all my passwords. But why? How am I supposed to help you manage things? You're not. Silence. I've hired a financial advisor, I continued. A professional. The quiet on the line turned sharp. You don't trust me. It wasn't a question. No, Dominic, I said calmly. I don't. A long breath. This is about that stupid text Valentina sent, isn't it? You're punishing us over one mistake. It wasn't the mistake, I said softly. It was the truth behind it. The conversation deteriorated quickly after that. He accused me of being irrational. I suggested he reconsider his expectations. We ended the call angry and farther apart than ever. That evening I was editing photos from our latest Tuesday outing when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole I saw Isla standing alone on my porch. She looked nervous. And strangely younger somehow. No makeup. Simple clothes. No performance. I opened the door. Isla? Is everything all right? Grandma, she said quietly. Can I come in? I need to talk to you. We sat in the blue living room with mugs of hot chocolate between us. Then she told me she'd overheard her parents arguing. Dad said you're spending everything on yourself now, she said, eyes fixed on the mug. Mom said they needed to stop you before it was all gone. My heart hurt, not for me. For her. And what do you think? I asked. Isla looked up, eyes suddenly fierce. I think it's your money. Then she hesitated. And I think, maybe you're happier now. I swallowed hard. You seem different, she added. Good different. Unexpected tears stung my eyes. I am happier. She smiled. Then I'm glad. Even if it means no fancy summer camps. We talked for hours after that. Real conversation. About school. About how she wanted to become a veterinarian. About how exhausted she was by appearances and shopping and constant pressure. When she finally left, hope stayed behind. Maybe one person in my family still saw me as human. The next morning Valentina called. Her voice was dripping honey. The next morning Valentina called in a voice dipped in syrup. Genevieve, we need a family meeting. Clear the air. Sunday at our house. I agreed immediately. I knew exactly what this meeting was about. They had finally realized I was serious about reclaiming my life, my money, and my choices. Now they wanted control back. I hung up smiling. Let them try. The mummy had climbed out of the tomb on her own. She had no intention of going back. Sunday arrived under low gray clouds. I dressed with care. Not my usual slacks and sweater. I chose the fitted blue dress Serafina had convinced me to buy, the one that made me stand taller the moment I put it on. My hair, freshly cut in a modern style Valentina once called a bit youthful, framed my face. I wore light makeup and my mother's pearls. I wanted to look exactly how I felt. Strong. Certain. Done being managed. Dominic's house was unusually quiet when I arrived. No television. No music upstairs. No normal family chaos. Valentina opened the door with a smile that never touched her eyes. Genevieve. So glad you came. She kissed the air near my cheek. The living room had been arranged like an intervention. Dominic sat stiffly in his armchair. Valentina perched beside him on the sofa, knees angled toward me like a united front. Theo lounged in the corner scrolling his phone. Isla sat apart from everyone else. When our eyes met, she gave me a small apologetic smile. Interesting. The moment I sat down, Dominic began. Mom, we need to talk about what's been going on. I set my purse beside me and folded my hands. I'm listening. Valentina leaned forward first. Genevieve, we're worried about you. All these sudden changes. The spending, the traveling, this photography thing. It's just not like you. Actually, I said gently, it's exactly like me. She blinked. The real me. Dominic frowned. You've been acting erratically since that misunderstanding with Valentina's text. Misunderstanding, I repeated. I let the word sit there. Is that what we're calling it? Valentina shifted. It was a stupid joke. I've apologized many times. A joke. I nodded slowly. So you didn't mean it when you called me the mummy? No one spoke. You weren't discussing how to divide my assets after I die? Even Theo looked up from his phone. That's what I thought. I crossed one leg over the other. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was an honest mistake. Dominic cleared his throat. Families talk about inheritance, Mom. It's normal. It doesn't mean we don't love you. Does changing my passwords mean I don't love you? I asked. Does repainting my house mean I don't love you? He stared at me. Because that seems to be your theory. My independence must be hostility. It's not about independence, Valentina snapped. It's about responsibility. A responsibility to whom? To this family. I almost laughed. What duty would that be exactly? Financing your lifestyle? Dying on a convenient schedule? That's not fair, Dominic said sharply. No, I agreed. It isn't. I looked around the room. It isn't fair to treat me like a bank account with a pulse. Isla lowered her eyes. It isn't fair to teach children that my value is measured in gifts, tuition, and checks. Theo slowly set down his phone. Valentina's pleasant mask cracked. You're being dramatic. We've always been there for you. After Dad died, Dominic added weakly. After Sebastian died, I corrected. Then I counted on my fingers. You visited twice a month, usually when you needed something. Dominic called weekly, mostly to discuss markets and investments. You expected birthday gifts, Christmas gifts, college funds, vacations, loans, furniture. I looked at my son. When was the last time you invited me over simply because you wanted my company? His silence answered for him. Valentina stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. We invited you here to discuss your reckless spending, not to be attacked. My reckless spending? My voice stayed calm, which seemed to irritate her more. You mean my money being spent by me on things I enjoy? That money was supposed to be for this family's future. She snapped. There it was. No disguise. No softness. The truth. Dominic grabbed her wrist. Valentina. No, I said. Let her finish. I stood slowly. I'd love to hear what she thinks my money is supposed to be for. Valentina's eyes narrowed. Your husband worked his whole life to build that estate. Do you think he'd want you wasting it on photography classes and trips to Italy with some woman you barely know? The room froze. Even Valentina seemed to realize too late what she had said. I took one steady breath. Sebastian wanted one thing for me. My voice softened. Before he died, he held my hand and said, "Be happy, Genevieve." I looked directly at her. He did not say, "Protect Dominic's inheritance." I turned to my son. He did not say, "Save everything for Valentina." Then I straightened my shoulders. For the first time since losing him, I paused. "I am happy." Dominic rose quickly. "Mom, please. We can work this out." "Yes," I said. "We can." Picked up my purse. "And we will." Every eye followed me. "I've made decisions regarding my estate." Valentina went pale. "I'd like all of you to meet me Friday at 3 o'clock. "Where?" Dominic asked. "At Celeste Hawthorne's office." He frowned. "Who's Celeste Hawthorne?" "My lawyer." The effect was instant. Valentina gasped. Dominic's face drained of color. Theo looked suddenly very interested. Only Isla seemed calm. "Changes?" Valentina whispered. "What changes?" I headed for the front door. "Friday, 3 o'clock. Then I opened it. "I'll text the address." Behind me I heard hurried footsteps. "Grandma," Isla said softly. "Grandma," Isla said softly when I stepped outside. I turned. She looked nervous but steady. "I'm proud of you." For a second I couldn't speak. Then I squeezed her hand. At least one person in that house saw me as more than a walking checkbook. I drove home lighter than I had felt in years. The confrontation I dreaded was over. I had said what needed saying. Now they would face consequences. And I would face the future on my own terms. Friday arrived. Celeste Hawthorne's office felt smaller with 5 extra people packed inside. My family sat stiffly in the visitor chairs. Dominic and Valentina together. Theo slouched beside them, Isla slightly apart. Beside me sat Serafina, my unexpected ally. Her presence said something important without a single word. I was not alone. Celeste moved through the formalities with crisp efficiency, explaining that we were gathered for the reading of my amended will and trust documents. I studied their faces while she spoke. Dominic trying to appear calm. Valentina barely hiding impatience. Theo looking bored. Isla listening carefully. Then Celeste closed the folder in front of her. "Before we begin," she said, "Mrs. Kensington would like to say a few words." Every eye turned to me. I had rehearsed this speech for days. Yet now, with all of them watching, emotion rose unexpectedly in my throat. I took one breath and began. "For most of my adult life, I put this family first." No one moved. "When Sebastian died, I believed my duty was to preserve what we built for all of you. The house. The investments. The savings." I looked at Dominic. I thought money was the greatest inheritance I could leave. He shifted in his chair. I was wrong. Valentina glanced down at her manicure. "The most valuable inheritance is dignity, independence, self-respect." I let that settle. And teaching the next generation what truly matters. Dominic couldn't meet my eyes. He looked away. "I have realized something else," I continued. "I still have a life to live." My voice strengthened. My life. Not as the mummy waiting to be unwrapped for her treasures. Valentina flinched. "Good. But as Genevieve Kensington. A woman with dreams, interests, and value beyond her bank account." Then I sat back. "So yes, I made changes." Celeste took over. Her voice was calm, professional, almost surgical. "Mrs. Kensington has established a new trust structure." She opened the documents. "A majority of her liquid assets will be donated to 3 charitable causes: a scholarship fund at the local community college, a youth photography program, and a senior support network." Valentina gasped. Dominic's face turned red. Celeste continued as if nothing had happened. "Mrs. Kensington's home will remain hers for as long as she wishes to live there. Upon sale, proceeds will be distributed among those same charitable organizations." "This is outrageous," Valentina snapped, half rising from her seat. "You can't just." "I can," I said calmly. I looked directly at her. "It is my money, Valentina." Then I added quietly, "Never yours." Dominic gripped her arm to pull her back down, though anger was burning through his own face. Mom, you're making a terrible mistake. No, I said. My mistake was teaching you to value what I owned more than who I am. Silence. Celeste turned another page. Mrs. Kensington has also created education trusts for Isla and Theo. Valentina's head snapped up so fast it was almost comical. These trusts will cover college tuition and approved educational costs under specific conditions. She explained. A 3.0 GPA. Community service hours each semester. Funds paid directly to schools, not parents. Valentina's expression soured instantly. Dominic stared at the carpet. In addition, Celeste said, when Isla and Theo each turn 25, they may receive a modest trust distribution if they have demonstrated financial independence for at least 2 consecutive years. Now Theo finally looked interested. So, we still get something? I smiled at him. Yes, Theo. But you'll earn it. I glanced at Isla. Just like your grandfather and I did. Isla gave me the smallest nod of approval. It meant more than she knew. Celeste continued. Mrs. Kensington retains full control of all remaining assets for her own living expenses, travel, healthcare, and personal enjoyment throughout her lifetime. Valentina could not stop herself. And after? Her voice was sharp as broken glass. Celeste smiled politely. After Mrs. Kensington's hopefully very distant passing, any remaining assets will be distributed to the previously named charities. The room went dead silent. Then Valentina stood. Her face twisted with fury. This is elder abuse, she hissed. She's not in her right mind. We'll contest this. Celeste didn't blink. You are welcome to try. She folded her hands. I have documented Mrs. Kensington's competence thoroughly, including independent medical evaluations. Then she added, Mrs. Kensington has also instructed me that any legal challenge will trigger a full revision removing all family benefits entirely. Valentina's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Dominic rose slowly, looking pale. Mom, this isn't fair. Fair. I stood too. Was it fair to call me the mummy? No answer. Was it fair to wait for me to die so you could spend my money? Nothing. Was it fair to teach your children that a grandmother's worth is measured in what she leaves behind? He looked shattered, but still silent. This meeting is concluded, Celeste said. No one asked technical questions. Valentina stormed out first. Dominic followed after her. Theo trailed behind, confused and suddenly very quiet. Only Isla stayed. She walked to me slowly. Grandma, can I still come visit you? Her voice was small. Just to visit. Not for anything else. I opened my arms and held her tight. My door is always open for you. After she left, Serafina squeezed my hand. You did it, Genevieve. How do you feel? I thought about the pain of seeing my son clearly. The greed. The entitlement. The anger at being denied what they believed belonged to them. It hurt more than I expected. And yet beneath that pain was something stronger. Free, I said. I feel free. 3 months later, I stood on a terrace in Tuscany with my camera raised toward a golden sunset spilling over vineyards. Serafina laughed beside me and lifted her wine glass. To new beginnings. To living, I replied. My phone buzzed. A text from Isla. Photos from her first semester of veterinary school. We spoke every week now. Our bond had grown stronger than either of us expected. Dominic had called once. Awkward. Careful. The conversation ended the moment he asked whether I had reconsidered anything. I hadn't reconsidered. Not for a second. Valentina never contacted me again. Through Isla, I later learned she and Dominic divorced the following year. Too much debt, too much resentment, too many years of building a marriage on appearances and expectations. When the money fantasy disappeared, so did the marriage. As for Dominic, time did what arguments never could. It humbled him. Our relationship never returned to what it once was, but slowly, carefully, it became honest. That was enough. And me? The woman they once called the mummy was more alive than she had been in decades. I had found more than freedom. I had found purpose. My photography began appearing in local galleries. I taught classes at the community center every season. I volunteered with seniors who felt forgotten and helped them remember they were not finished yet. I traveled whenever I pleased. I laughed more. I slept better. I bought good shoes and booked spontaneous trips. I filled my calendar with people who enjoyed my company, rather than calculated my value. Standing there in the Tuscan sunset, warm light spilling across the vineyards, camera in hand, I finally understood something unexpected. Valentina's cruel message had been the greatest gift anyone in that family ever gave me. It tore away the bandages of obligation. It stripped off years of guilt, routine, and being useful to everyone but myself. And underneath, there was no dried-up woman waiting quietly for the end. There was someone vibrant, someone curious, someone still becoming, someone with years of life left to live. They thought my story was ending. It had only just begun. And the last laugh, as it turns out, was mine. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.